to Unfinity and beyond!
Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for our first super early daily dose of Unfinity spoilers. So Unfinity, that's the new unset. It used to be called silver bordered sets, no longer silver bordered though. Everything's black bordered, and we got a different way to know which cards are actually playable and which ones are not legal to play anywhere, with acorn holograms, which we'll talk about in a minute. So Unfinity, it's a set that is not actually releasing until October now. It was supposed to be out much sooner, but there were some delays because of supply chain issues, so not coming out until October. But Mark Rosewater yesterday had a panel at San Diego Comic-Con where we got to see some spoilers for the set, got a bunch of information from the set, and I gotta say, this set is super weird. And the big takeaway is, unlike every other unset in the past, some of the cards in this set are actually eternal legal. And by eternal legal, that's like Commander precons, legal for Commander, legal for Legacy and Vintage. So half of the cards, or some percentage of the cards, are actually just normal black border playable cards, when the other portion of the cards is going to be essentially silver bordered cards that no longer have a silver border, that aren't legal to play anywhere, which is a pretty interesting, weird mix. So anyway, let's talk about the cards from this set. What we learned, and I will warn you, it is some really wacky, weird, wild stuff, which I'm kind of excited about, kind of disappointed about, kind of confused about. It is a weird set, maybe the weirdest set we've ever seen. So before we jump into it, two quick reminders. Number one, if you need some Unfinity cards in the future, or currently existing cards now, you can get them from our amazing sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. If you get a free goldfish sticker, just let them know you want one in your order notes and they'll hook you up. Number two, to keep up on all the latest spoilers, head over to MTGpreviews.com. And number three, for a few more days, 1 week to go actually, we've got a sweet Commander playmat, a limited edition Commander playmat for sale over at MTGGoldfishmerch.com, so head over there to pick it up if you're interested. Anyway, let's talk about the weird, wild, wacky, confusing world of Unfinity. Alright, so first up today, we got two mythics, both of which are really interesting, and together these cards form a pretty big PSA about this set, and about spoiler season of this set. So we have Far Out, a 3-mana enchantment that says, rather than choosing the indicated number of modes on a spell, you get to choose one or more modes, but you can't choose the same mode more than once. Also works for abilities you control, which is kind of cool. And then Magar of the Magic Strings, a 3-mana 3/3 Rakdos Minotaur Performer legend that lets you pay 3 and essentially manifest as a 3/3, a instant or sorcery from your graveyard as a creature, and then when it hits your opponent, you get to cast the instant or sorcery that's under it without paying its mana cost, but then if the creature leaves the battlefield, it goes to exile instead of going anyplace else. So these are two really out there designs, very unique stuff that we've never seen before. However, only one of these cards is actually legal to be played anywhere. You can see, if you look way down at the bottom of these cards, Far Out, the hollow stamp is acorn shaped. That means this is a silver bordered card. Silver border cards, if you're not familiar with them from old unsets, it means that they're not legal. You can't technically play them in literally any format at all. The one exception would be in Commander. If you have a play group and you talk to people ahead of time in Rule 0 and ask them if you can play silver border cards in your deck and they say yes, then of course you can play them. But you can't play it in Commander proper. You can't play it in Legacy Vintage. You can't play it anywhere. It's really, and this is probably a bad shortcut, but it's essentially not a real card. On the other hand, if you look at Magar, Magar has a normal hollow. So this means it is a black border card. It's legal in Commander. You don't got to Rule 0 it in or anything. It's legal in Legacy. It's legal in Vintage. Basically the same legality as a Commander precon. So not Modern, not Standard, but every place else. And I gotta say, I don't really like this acorn thing. I miss silver borders. I think, from what I can tell, is Mark Rosewater and some people at Wizards would like silver border cards to be more accepted in Commander. They feel like there's a bias against them, and you should be able to play them in Commander. However, the rules committee for Commander has been pretty clear that they're not going to make them legal. So I feel like part of why they did this, I think, is to try to make silver border cards more accepted. But I think that this is a misguided idea. The reason, in my opinion, that silver border cards aren't generally accepted to play is not because of their border color. Like, that's not the issue here. The issue is Wizards in the RC specifically says these are not real tournament legal Magic cards. Like, that is the whole design of these cards. So the bias isn't against the border color, it's against playing cards that Wizards said is illegal. So I don't think that doing this acorn thing actually solves any of the problems that Wizards wants it to solve. And I've seen this cause a lot of problems already. Like, people are not clear on which of these cards they can actually play in their decks and which they can't. There were some people on Twitter when we were talking about about this card that were talking about like pre-ordering Far Out to play in their decks, not realizing that it's, for all intents and purposes, and I know this is the worst slang, it's not a real quote-unquote card. And by real, I mean it's not legal to be played in any format. Again, rules zeroed in, do whatever you want in your own personal Commander games, but if you just go to a pod at a Command Fest and have Far Out in your deck, that would technically be against the rules. Obviously, if you go to a Command Fest and you're playing it for a fun game and you tell people ahead of time, hey, I got Far Out in my deck, are you okay with that? And they say yes, that's a different story. So I feel like we really need Silver Border. This is just too confusing for me. I will tell you my personal reaction to Far Out is I saw it posted on Reddit when I got up this morning, and I started reading it, and I was like, wow, this card is super cool. Being able to choose all the modes on my modal spells, that's a really neat effect, and I was getting hyped about it and started thinking, okay, what can I do with this card? And then eventually I saw a little acorn at the bottom, and I was like, oh, like, this is silver bordered. I can't actually do anything with this card. It's not going to be legal for me to play in Magic Online. I can't build a legacy deck around it, a vintage deck around it. I can try to get people to let me play in Commander if I ask nicely, but it's not technically something I can just play there. So this is another Urza or Richard Garfield PhD or Blacker Lotus instead of being a card that I can just play with. So I feel like it's easy to miss. That's what I've tried to say here. I wish that we went back to silver bordered just because it's clear at a glance. Like, is this card something that I can play in any of my decks without having to ask permission, without having to do anything like that? If it's silver bordered, the answer is clearly no. You got to ask permission. You got to do the whole rule zero thing. The acorn is just not as obvious, and it's really sad because this is a really neat card. Could you imagine choosing a cryptic command and casting it and getting all the modes on it, or a Esper Charm, or a Charming Prince, getting to scry and blink and gain 3? It's just a really cool design. So it actually left me feeling kind of sad that the card isn't legal to play anywhere. I guess technically it doesn't work under the rules, which is why it's acorned or silver bordered, but it is a really, really cool design that I wish did work under the rules, because I would love to build a deck around Far Out. On the other hand, Magar is actually a legal card, and I think this will be a pretty popular commander. I don't think it'll make it in Legacy. Like, it's 3 to cast, it's only a 3/3, so it dies to Lightning Bolt. It's 3 to activate, and then you have to get in hits with your 3/3 creature for it to do anything, which just seems like a ton of hoops to jump through to actually make it work in a format like Legacy or Vintage, which is just so fast and so powerful. It's kind of like a Spellbinder is probably my favorite comparison. Equipment that when you play it, you imprint an instant or sorcery from your hand, and then when you hit someone with the equipped creature, you just cast that spell for free. Magar kind of lets you do this from your graveyard by exiling it and making 3/3s. Also a little bit reminiscent of some Manifest cards. That's probably the closest comparison. Manifest is 2/2 cards that are coming from your library or graveyard or wherever. This is making 3/3, so it's an upgrade, but it's kind of similar to that as well. As far as what you do with this card, I could imagine like some really janky Legacy deck where you're trying to like Faithless Looting and enter the infinite into your graveyard, and then on your opponent's end step, you exile to enter the infinite, you hit your opponent with it, then you cast it and you combo off and win the game. I don't think it's going to be like a legit thing that people would do competitively, but it is kind of interesting. We have seen like Minotaur decks in Legacy. They're not top tier, but thanks to didgeridoo, you can cheat some expensive Minotaurs into play really easily, and there are a few Minotaurs that care about spells. Where I think this card is really going to shine though, and really be popular, is as a commander. It's like a really weird, unique take on a Rakdos Reanimator commander. You're reanimating your spells essentially, so it wants you to have big spells, it wants you to fill your graveyard, and then it wants you to have ways to get in with your 3/3 creatures so you're able to cast those spells. And red and black is like the perfect color combination for this. You have Faithless Looting, you got Wheel of Fortune, you got Entomb, you got Dark Deal, so you got a ton of ways to just get stuff in your graveyard. Then you play Magar and hopefully get it back and try to hit your opponent with something big and win. You could play it in a Minotaur shell. I actually think this is going to be better as just like a generic non-tribal commander, but there's like Deathbell of Warcry. That's a very powerful spell in a Minotaur deck, and there are a couple of Minotaurs that care about spells like Oracle of Bones, let you cast stuff from free, maybe with Tribute, or Warflayer, Javelin Linear, wants a bunch of spells in your graveyard, but I don't think you go Minotaurs. I think you just try to reanimate powerful things like Rise of the Dark Realms or Explosive Singularity. Think of it like a Reanimator deck, but rather than reanimating creatures, you're trying to reanimate these big spells. There's also some infinite combo potential if you can make one of your 3/3s unblockable and have the exiled card be an extra combat step card. However, you got to be careful with what extra combat step cards you play. A lot of extra combat step cards specifically refer to being cast in your main phase. Like the way they're worded, they only work if they're cast during your main phase. Magar, in the things that it makes from the graveyard, the pseudo manifest creatures, it's going to be happening during combat. So that means you got to have like Savage Beating, which can be played in combat. World at War, the way it's worded, works during combat. If you have one of those as your 3/3 from Magar, and then you make it unblockable with whatever Rogue's Passage, Whisper Silk Cloak, Key to the City, you can just keep hitting your opponent again and again with the 3/3, continually casting the extra combat card, and just do that until the entire table is dead. So that's another direction to go with this card. So I think Magar, I would be surprised if it actually made it in Legacy or Vintage. Maybe you could do a janky against the odds deck with it, but I think this will be a pretty popular commander. It does things that Rakdos already is good at, which is filling the graveyard, reanimating stuff, but it does it in a really unique, cool, awesome way. So I really love this card, and I could definitely imagine building a commander deck around it. Speaking of Unfinity, we also got one of the weirdest things that has ever come to Magic, which I guess makes sense. We're talking about an unset here, and this is sticker cards. So what you're looking at here are not real Magic cards. These are actually like tokens or dungeons, sort of. They're sticker cards that are going to be outside the game, but there's other cards in Affinity that are going to give you tickets and also tell you to play stickers. For example, we got a few of these so far, like Carnival Carnivore, a 6 mana 4/5 with Death Touch. It's an alien crab horror. When it enters the battlefield, you get a ticket, and then you may put a sticker on target non-land permanent you control. So what this means, let's say you play Carnival Carnivore, you're going to get a ticket, which is essentially like energy. It just stores up. It's a form of a counter, essentially, a resource that you're storing up. And then you get to play a sticker. So then you go to your sticker card. Like, let's say you got Urza's Dark Cannonball. You can add a hat to the art, the hat sticker. You can take Urza or Dark or Cannonball and add it to the name of a card. Or if you have enough tickets, you can spend tickets to give the creature like Double Exalted for 2 tickets, or Shadow for 3 tickets, or put the Power and Toughness sticker 7/4 over the top of your normal Power and Toughness for 4 tickets, turning the creature into that for as long as it's in a public zone. So that is kind of the idea of how this works, and we've seen a few of these cards so far, like Wicker Picker, 3 mana 2/3, creature spells you cast have Sticker Kicker 1, so you can pay 1 and you get to put a sticker on the creature when it comes into play. On the other end, we've also seen some of these cards that are acorn, like Angelic Herald, Animate Object. These also interact with stickers, but they got the acorn stamp, so they're not actually legal to play anywhere. Again, you can rule 0 them into your commander pod if you want to. If you want to play with them for fun in your play groups, down with that, like, perfectly fine, awesome, go for it. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this shakes out. This has a lot of weird implications, and Mark Rosewater actually specifically said that most but not all of the sticker cards are going to be eternal legal, which means you can play them in Commander, you can play them in Legacy, you can play them in Vintage. It's also worth mentioning how this actually is going to work in Constructed, is you're actually going to have a sticker card sideboard. So I think there's 40 some different sticker cards, like Urza's Dark Cannonball or Happy Dead Squirrel. So there's going to be 40 some of these. You're going to build a sticker card sideboard of 10 stickers, and then when you start the game, you get 3 of those sticker cards at random, and those are the ones you can use during that game, essentially. So you don't have complete control over what stickers you're going to actually have access to, but you do have some control, because you get to choose the 10 that are in the sticker board, and then you get 3 of those at random, and this has a lot of really weird implications. So on level 1, just for playing it in Unfinity itself, it's just wacky and weird, like changing the art on your card, adding funny words to names, messing with abilities or power and toughness. Like, that's just kind of sweet. That's really fun in Unfinity. As far as constructed formats, I'm actually a little nervous about what this means, although so far, the sticker cards we've seen, not the sticker cards themselves, but the cards that give you tickets and give you access to stickers, like Carnival Carnivore, they just aren't really costed in a way that's competitive, but we've seen very few of them yet. But this opens up some really weird situations in a format like Legacy or Vintage, or I guess in Commander. Like, let's say you're playing Legacy, and you have a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and your opponent Pithing Needles it, naming Jace the Mind Sculptor. In theory, you can Carnival Carnivore to add a name sticker to Jace, make it Dark Jace the Mind Sculptor, or Urza's Jace the Mind Sculptor, or Jace Cannonball the Mind Sculptor, or whatever. Like, change the name, and then Pithing Needle would not be affecting it any longer because it's naming Jace the Mind Sculptor, and the name of your card is no longer Jace the Mind Sculptor, it's Dark Jace the Mind Sculptor or whatever. So we'll have to wait and see. My guess is Wizards probably cost most of the cards. They give you tickets, let you put sticker on things in a way that they're probably not going to be competitive in like Legacy or Vintage. Fun in Commander, probably wonky and weird. Also worth mentioning, the sticker cards are reusable. At least that's the idea of them. We'll see how well it works in practice. But the idea is, like, you can take and stick a whatever, squirrel on your Jace the Mind Sculptor if you have something that lets you add an art sticker to it. And then after the game, you can take the sticker off, put it back on your sticker card, use it again the next game. So it's not a one-time use thing. You should be able to use this again and again and again. So definitely a wild mechanic. One other thing worth noting about this is I feel like this new sticker technology could technically let something like the perpetual mechanic on Arena actually exist in paper. Like if you could put a sticker that was a -1/-1 counter on something, it seems like that would be able to last in the graveyard, in your hand, even in your library, maybe if you're under sleeves. And then you could essentially have a perpetual -1/-1, just like perpetually works on Arena. Right now, the way this works, the way the rules for stickers and this mechanic works, is it only works in public zone. So if you put a sticker on your Jace the Mind Sculptor that makes it Dark Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then Jace dies and goes to your graveyard, that's a public zone. It's still face up, so it'll still be Dark Jace the Mind Sculptor. On the other hand, if Jace gets bounced back to your hand, that's a private zone. Your opponent doesn't have access to the information. Then the sticker would essentially fall off. Or if it got back into your library somehow, then it would fall off. So it doesn't work like perpetually as it is, but I feel like this technology of being able to put stickers on cards coming to Black Border could actually allow something like that to work overall. So that's all we know so far about the new unset. Doesn't come out until the end of October, so we got a little ways to go. And really, with these weird sets, we got to take a wait and see mode. Like that whole Pithing Needle Jace thing we were talking about, that's how it seems to work under the current rules, but we haven't gotten the official rules for Unfinity yet, so maybe it'll work differently once we actually get them. Unsure how quickly this will actually happen since the set doesn't release for so long, still like 3 months away. We might be speculating on this for quite a while before we actually get to spoiler season and set release, but my word of warning is, be really careful with these cards. As you're looking at pre-orders and so forth, just be warned, acorn simple means silver bordered means not technically legal to play in any format. Again, you can rule zeroed in. I want to be really clear on that. I don't want to say you shouldn't play these cards, because if your playgroup's down with it, there's some really fun effects. Like, I would be fine with someone playing a far out deck against me in Commander. If you came up and were like, hey, I got far out in my deck, I'm playing Lucky Charms, like, are you cool with that? I'm definitely cool with that. I'd love to see it in action. But just be warned, as far as any sort of competitive play or playing with random play groups, they aren't technically legal Magic cards. On the other hand, something like Magar, that is a legal Magic card in a bunch of different formats, so make sure to check the hologram. Look for the acorn, look for the normal hologram as you're making your purchases. So anyway, that is Unfinity. That's our first look at the set. Let me know what you think. I'm curious. Do you think they should have just stuck with silver borders? Is the acorn hologram enough for you to know which cards are legal, which cards aren't legal? What do you think about the designs? Could Far Out have actually been a legal card? Like, could that have been a real card that worked in Commander and Legacy and Vintage? Or why is it broken? What does it do that the rules don't allow? What about Magar? How good's that going to be? Are you going to build a Commander deck around it? Does it have any shot in Legacy or Vintage? What about the stickers? What do you think of that whole mechanic? Is that good, bad, ugly? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back in a few weeks with more Dominaria United spoilers. So until then, have a lovely day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.